Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Friday, September 27th. I hope everybody had a wonderful day so far. Today, we will be covering, of course, our predictions. It is Friday, which means we do two different things. We predict for the weekend, and we do our MLB power rankings. Also, we're going to do a breakdown for Thursday night football. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, leave a message with a donation or a tip. A message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Friday, September 27th. But like I was saying, we're going to start off our show today talking all about the ugly Thursday night game. The Cowboys took the NFC Thursday Night Football slugfest, as it says down there. Cowboys win 20-15 over the New York Football Giants. An ugly game, filled with flags, filled with lots of ref ball. But in the end of the day, the Cowboys reign supreme there. They're a better team than the Giants are, although if it was possible to give both of these teams losses, I think they both should have gotten one. The Giants seemed like they played better football throughout. They were able to shut down the Cowboys' offense a little bit better than the Cowboys' defense was able to shut down the Giants' offense. They were able to move the ball downfield, control the ball the time of possession, control the ball, have more plays, have more yards, all of that, but they could not finish drives. The Giants could not punch the ball into the end zone, settling for 5 field goals, losing the game. At the end of the day, the Giants are very one-dimensional. When we were breaking down the Cowboys in the last couple of weeks, we talked about how they were very one-dimensional through CeeDee Lamb, and that was a fact. Outside of the one play that CeeDee Lamb really broke free, putting him for a 55-yard touchdown, the Giants did a pretty good job of shutting him and the rest of that Cowboys offense down. Dak was very efficient, as was Daniel Jones. There were some dropped passes on both sides there. The Cowboys don't have another option, though. Rico Dowdle was the leading rusher for the Cowboys. They didn't get anything going on the ground. The Giants also couldn't get anything going on the ground, and that might have been the bigger story. After Devin Singletary goes off for one of his better games against the Browns, really putting them away, getting a couple of explosive runs out there, he was unable to get anything going. The Giants finished with less than 2 yards per carry. Devin Singletary finishes with 22 yards on 13 rushes. He kept going side to side instead of picking up yards north and south. And that's one of the biggest things that's really underrated in a rusher. It's why DeAndre Swift kind of struggles getting to the Bears a little bit in the run game, especially behind an offensive line that, while it's improved, Andrew Thomas has taken down or competed against 2 of the best edge rushers in football in back-to-back weeks and done a very, very good job of that in Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons this week. It's not going to be enough. That offensive line isn't good enough. Daniel Jones was efficient. He got the ball out quick. That's what you're looking out of him. I know some people want him to push the ball downfield, but when he did push the ball downfield, he kept underthrowing his receiver, and whether that be his fault or the fault of a collapsing pocket, it just wasn't good enough. They weren't able to push the ball downfield. Wan'Dale Robinson dropped a couple of balls that would have changed the game. Obviously, Malik Neighbors was the story for the Giants. Goes off yet again, over 10 catches, over 100 yards, goes down with a concussion at the end on a 4th down tiptoe catch, kind of reminiscent of what happened against the Commanders in Week 2, although obviously a different scenario as he suffered a concussion on that play, although in my opinion, I think he actually suffered his injury earlier on on an earlier 4th down conversion. He looked slow to get up, and after that, every time he touched the ball, he looked slow to get up, and it came and really bit the Giants in the butt there when they weren't able to lean on their number one weapon, Malik Neighbors, the rookie wide receiver, who's going to set all kinds of records this year if he's able to stay healthy. On the Cowboys end, penalties are a problem. If you do that against a good team, we saw what happened against the Ravens. We saw what happened against, the Saints. If they play like they did against the Giants every week, which is kind of how they've been playing every week, they are not going to make the playoffs. They need to quickly figure out how to, not commit so many penalties. 10 accepted penalties against them in that first half. That is ridiculous. Now, they did much better in the second half at avoiding penalties, and so did the Giants. There were just a million penalties in that first half. But there were a lot of problems with the Cowboys, and they're not easy problems to fix either. I think it's something to do with the coaching, honestly. Whether that be the defensive coaching or the offensive coaching, there were problems in all phases of that game. Everyone looked sloppy. Everyone looked ugly in that game. There was not one portion of that game that I look at and say, you know what? This is what we want to duplicate in coming weeks. This is what we want to focus on. The Cowboys' run defense was an improvement, but I think that's more on the Giants not being able to have a real threat on the ground rather than the Cowboys' run defense doing anything crazy. But let me know what you thought of this game. Cowboys win an ugly one. I'd love to they get away with it. Massive win. 2-2 is huge as opposed to 1-3. They're not out of it yet. This is a little bit of a concern for the Cowboys, though. So we'll see if they can continue this momentum and keep it up in future weeks. But they get a bit of a bye week. Injuries are going to be an issue for them. Obviously, losing DeMarcus Lawrence, losing Micah Parsons, Giants losing Malik Neighbors. This was a brutal game for injuries as well. Hopefully everyone gets back and healthy. We'll see what happens. A mini bye week for these teams, and they'll be back next Sunday. But let me know what you think. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to go through all of the NFL games this Sunday. Predict every single one, give you a score, give you a reasoning for why, and whether or not they'll cover the spread. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the station, look around, everybody is a fake. I'm making everybody on the station. Over one man blow up in the basement statement. The top is so vacant. I'm this shit that I think you're amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing. Sold out over 1,000 faces. Hey, keep my way in the put down. Hitting a place my what that shit. Moving it, I'm motion shit. I'm moving it. Choose to live, but choose to keep it. Everybody in the world, please Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the Thursday night slugfest between the New York Giants and the Dallas Cowboys. That's all the Dallas Cowboys come out with a 20-15 win. Excuse me. A game that both teams needed to win pretty badly. In this segment, we are going to take a look at the rest of the games around the NFL. All of the Sunday games, we'll even predict the Monday ones. We have scores for them, but we'll go more in depth on those two on Monday. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it, or if you are on YouTube, you do the exact same thing with the Super Chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Friday, September 27th. But like I was saying, we're doing our Friday NFL game picks. We have every single game to go through. So why not start with the other New York team? The New York Jets hosting the Denver Broncos, 7.5-point favorites. Aaron Rodgers had his coming out party with the New York Jets last Thursday night, taking down the New England Patriots. The Denver Broncos and Bo Nix get their first win together in the rookie's young career. A big game for both of these teams last week, looking to back it up. Both of them got kind of blowout wins. I think this Jets defense, while it is a little bit banged up, is a much better unit than that Tampa Bay defense. Sean Payton is a very good coach. Bo Nix showed some flashes last week, but still, it's not enough for me to put my entire faith in him. Aaron Rodgers has the resume for me to say he looks like he's back, and he looks like he's moving around like he used to be. Ran for a couple first downs there. That's a really encouraging sign from Aaron Rodgers. I think the Jets are going to win this game, and I think they're going to win it pretty easily. The Denver Broncos defense, I think, is worse than that Patriots defense. That offense might be slightly better, but it's only slightly. I think those two teams are very similar. The Jets win 28-14. Up next, Minnesota heading to Green Bay, a division rivalry. Jordan Love is questionable in this one. Green Bay is favored by 3. Minnesota's defense has been playing out of their minds. Brian Flores has been arguably the best coach in the league. The one that you would argue it with is Matt LaFleur of the Green Bay Packers. I think these two coaches right here have been the best two coaches in the league to start off the season, going up head-to-head against each other for the first of 2 matchups this season. Sam Darnold has been able to play mistake-free football. Xavier McKinney has intercepted a ball in each of the first 3 games. This game is going to come down to whoever wins the turnover battle. Malik Willis, I'm going to assume he's starting, although, like I said, Jordan Love is questionable. There is still a chance he comes in and plays. This is a massive matchup. Both of these teams are showing that they belong at the top of the NFC. This could be major for seeding for the division race. I think Minnesota's going to come in and get the first upset win of the week. This is going to be really close, but I love what Brian Flores has been able to do with his defense. Matt LaFleur has been awesome. And I hate that I keep fading Malik Willis. I really do. I hate that I'm going to sit here yet again and say that I don't trust Malik Willis, but I don't. He's looked incredible these last couple weeks. He really has. But if we take a look at his career numbers, or I guess his lack of career numbers, I don't know if I can really trust him in a game like this one with a defense like Minnesota's that's been flying around, putting crazy coverages, crazy hidden schemes that he has never seen before. I think Minnesota is able to steal this one on the road. They win 24-21. Green Bay favored by 3. This is my first upset of the week. Then New Orleans, traveling down to Atlanta to take on Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons favored by 2.5 here. I know the Saints came off of a very, very disappointing game. A game where they weren't able to get anything going offensively. A game where Alvin Kamara was reduced back to his last year self. A game where Derek Carr wasn't able to get his normal production through the air. I guess his beginning of the year production through the air. That Saints defense is still really, really good, though. That is a Saints defense that held a very high-powered Eagles offense to just 15 points. That is a Saints defense that, well, yes, they faltered a little bit at the end. They did a lot of bend, don't break, and they forced a lot of really opportune turnovers on that Philadelphia Eagles squad. The Atlanta Falcons are a team that was unable to punch it in the end against a good defense in the Chiefs. I think that Saints defense is better. I think this is going to be a very tight game, but even though it's on the road in Atlanta, Kirk Cousins has looked better. I think the New Orleans Saints are for real. I know that's kind of a hotly debated issue there. I think the Saints are a really good team. I love the way that they've been in the beginning of the season. Now, I don't think they're going to be 40-point team every single week like they were the first 2 weeks, but this is a good Saints team. This Falcons team is kind of running into some bad luck, and I don't really love the coaching style right now. I'm going to lean towards the Saints in my second upset of the week. They win 27-19. Then we get Philadelphia. Huge win in New Orleans. They go on the road to take on another NFC South team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield coming off of an awful game, really that entire team coming off of an awful game. Philadelphia Eagles favored by 2 in Tampa. I love the way the Eagles are playing it. Devonta Smith has just been ruled out. A.J. Brown is questionable. They still have Saquon Barkley, and that is the X factor. Dallas Goedert did his thing last week. You have a lot of other weapons. You still have Jahan Dotson, and while I don't think he's a particularly great weapon in the NFL, he is a guy that, you could rely on a little bit. He had his moments in Washington when he was a rookie. He's a guy that if you use him, draw up a couple plays for him, he could be very useful in the absence of Devonta Smith or A.J. Brown. Now, like I said, I think this game is going to come down to Saquon Barkley. Vita Vea, questionable. Not sure if he's going to play. That is huge for the Bucs' run defense. If he's not out there, Saquon could run wild on them. I know they did a good job against the Broncos of slowing down the run a bunch, but if you let Bo Nix do what he did against you, I can't even imagine what Jalen Hurts is going to be able to do to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they come out with more energy. I think they were overlooking the Broncos just a little bit. This is still a good Bucs team, but I think this is a better Eagles team. The Eagles win 34-20. Then we get a really interesting matchup. The Cincinnati Bengals favored by 4.5 points, traveling to Carolina, where they will face Andy Dalton, their former franchise quarterback. Andy Dalton came in, looked awesome, gave the NFL its first 300-yard, 3-touchdown pass performance of the year. Adam Thielen, out, gets put on the IR after catching a touchdown. Nasty hamstring injury there for him. This is going to be an interesting matchup. That Cincinnati defense, I don't think could stop a fly right now. They are just really bad. Their coverages are getting blown a whole bunch. They can't get any pass rush. They had single-digit pass rush win rates last week against the Commanders, which contributed to Jaden Daniels' historic game. Jaden Daniels still had a great game without that, but still, it helps a little bit when you're not really facing pressure. The Cincinnati defense needs to step up. They're just kind of doubling Trey Hendrickson and everything else is working. Their interior defensive line is injured right now. Both of their big guys are out, and that really hurts. I think because of that, this game is a lot closer than people think. I know maybe some people are overestimating the Panthers. The Panthers are still a bad team. This is a very good Cincinnati offense, too. And I think they'll be able to outscore the Panthers offense regardless of how bad that defense is. But I do think this will be close. I think the Cincinnati Bengals win 31-28. They don't cover the spread on this one. Carolina and Andy Dalton continue their wrath, I guess I'll say, around the league. But that's a bad Cincinnati defense, and they're not going to win a lot of games if they can't find a way to shape up. Jacksonville heads down to Houston. Houston favored by 6 in a divisional matchup. Jacksonville, number 32 on my power rankings. They've looked awful. Get killed by the Bills. This is a very good Houston team. They're missing Tank Dell. They're missing Dameon Pierce. If they have Joe Mixon back, that run game is going to be very important. I think they bounce back in a big way. I don't think Jacksonville stands much of a chance here. They play too much man against a very talented Texans wide receiver room. And Jacksonville, as I said at the beginning of the year and have been saying all year long, they don't have the corners, the secondary to step up and play defense against these wide receivers in the NFL. Jacksonville loses 13-31. And bonus prediction for you, Doug Peterson gets fired. A little early in the year maybe, but they need to get something going. And obviously it's not working right now down there in Jacksonville. Pittsburgh traveling to Indiana to take on Anthony Richardson and the Colts. The Pittsburgh Steelers, 2.5-point favorites, come in winning 3 straight to open up the year. Justin Fields still has not been named QB1. I don't know if that's for Russell Wilson's sake. Maybe it's an unwritten clause in the contract that he's QB1. I'm not entirely sure there, but it seems pretty clear that Justin Fields has won that job. Russell Wilson continues to be inactive. This Pittsburgh defense has been the best defense in the league. They've allowed less than 300 yards total through 3 weeks, which is insane, by the way. That's not normal numbers. for a football team. This Pittsburgh Steelers team has been awesome. It really has. TJ Watt looks like the front runner for Defensive Player of the Year. Indianapolis has a good run game. If they can get that going, if they don't have to rely on Anthony Richardson, who can make those crazy plays but has not been able to make those easy plays, I think they can win this game. I think Anthony Richardson is going to have one of his good games. I kept going back and forth on this one. I think Indianapolis is going to cover the spread on this one. I do. It's 2.5 points, but I'm not sure if they're going to win. I'm going with Indianapolis to win 24-20 over the Steelers. I think Anthony Richardson is going to just go crazy, have one of his good games this week. But he's also going to put the ball in harm's way a little bit too often and keep it close. I just don't trust that Pittsburgh offense to rally around some of the mistakes he's made and drive the ball down the field. I need to see something out of that offense this week. Indianapolis wins 24-20, my third upset of the week. Then, the Rams travel down to Chicago to take on the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams goes for 363 yards in the loss last week threw the ball 52 times. They couldn't get anything going on the ground. They need to get stuff going on the ground. The Rams are heavily injured. The Bears defense is awesome. I love that Bears defense. Matthew Stafford pulled some magic out of his hat. I'm not sure if it's going to work against this week, but I do think they're going to be able to keep it close. If the Bears can shut down the run from Kyren Williams, if they can focus on Kyren Williams and keep him out of the end zone a whole bunch of times, it's going to be tough for the Rams to get much going offensively. I think the Bears win 23-20. Traveling to Arizona, Jaden Daniels and the Commanders, coming off of a huge win, travel down to Arizona, take on Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. The Cardinals, 3.5-point favorites at home on Sunday. This is going to be a good game. Like I said, Jaden Daniels faced less than 10% of pressure rate against the Cincinnati Bengals last week on Monday Night Football. And while that's not the only reason he had a really good game, we talked a lot about him this week. He had a great game, 90% completion percentage. I don't think he'll be able to replicate that again. That's not something we're looking for him to do every week. And honestly, as good as he's been, I think the hype for him is getting a little out of hand. Maybe I've just been seeing a little bit too much of PFT commentator there. But I think it's a little too much love that he's getting. He did great. He played great, and I'm not gonna take that away from him or the Washington Commanders. But it's a little too much. He's not the best quarterback in the league. He has flaws of his own. He holds the ball too long in certain situations. He's got the confidence. He's got the moxie to run a team. But I think the Cardinals get the ground game going again, which I think is going to be very important against this Washington team, and it also is going to let their offense go. Marvin Harrison is going to have a huge game. That Washington defense is not good enough to stop a receiver like Marvin Harrison. I think the Cardinals win this game. Close one, 27-24. Then we get New England Patriots traveling to the Bay Area to take on the heavily injured San Francisco 49ers. Niners favored by 10 points in this game. Jacoby Brissett back at quarterback. Drake May watch is on, though. George Kittle, Brock Purdy should play. Juwan Jennings coming off of a huge game. 3 touchdowns, over 150 yards, over 10 catches. Wild performance from him. He's a great receiver. I love Juwan Jennings. I still want to see more out of Brandon Ayuk. He's dropped a lot of balls since coming back, and you can attribute that to him not being at training camp, him missing a lot of the offseason workouts. But still, he's a receiver that gets paid $30 million a year. He should make more money. He should catch more passes. Christian McCaffrey still out. Jordan Mason, very good running back, I think. This is just going to be too much for the Niners to handle. Tough draw after a brutal game against the Jets. I don't think this one is going to go much different. The Niners win 28-10. The Las Vegas Raiders travel to Cleveland. The Browns, coming off of a tough loss to the New York Giants. Deshaun Watson gets sacked 8 times against the Giants front that I think is very comparable to the Raiders front. Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins, comparable to that Giants front up there. That is going to be a tough day. Jedrick Wills Jr. gets hurt in that game against the Giants. The offensive line takes a step back. Myles Garrett, day to day, that defense is going to take a step back. I'm not sure what version of the Raiders we're going to get. I don't know if we're going to get good Gardner Minshew. I don't know if we're going to get bad Gardner Minshew, and that is going to be the difference in this game. If we get good Gardner Minshew, even without Devontae Adams, they still have solid receivers, solid weapons over there. Trey Tucker, I like him as a deep ball threat. I like a good Jacoby Myers. He was solid last season for them. If their defense plays a little better, get some pressure on Deshaun Watson, I still need to see that Cleveland offense do something with Deshaun Watson. I think they win this game. I think the Browns win this game if Jameis Winston comes in and starts, but that's not what's happening. For now, I've got the Raiders winning it. It's a pick'em right now. Raiders win 23-15. Then we get the Kansas City Chiefs division matchup traveling to take on the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers have an identity. The Chiefs have been really solid against the run this season. It hasn't been like amazing, but they've got really good linebackers that are great at sniffing the run, and that's going to be the big matchup. Can that linebacker core beat a beat-up offensive line? Joe Alt, Rashawn Slater, both down for this game, it seems like. We're probably going to get Justin Herbert. I think he should rest. High ankle sprains only get worse when you go at him. He needs to take a break. But it seems like he's going to go, and he wants to go, he's going to go. And that's what's happening right now. I don't think the Chargers have the offensive juice to keep up with the Chiefs, but I think the Chiefs have been struggling a little bit. I think the Chiefs, this is a get back on track game. Not all the way, though. Chiefs favored by 7 on the road. I think they win 26-17. And the final game of Sunday. The Sunday night game, Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, currently the MVP favorite, travel to Baltimore to take on Lamar Jackson, the reigning MVP, and the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens favored by 2.5 points in this one, but their defense has not been very good compared to a very good defense on the Bills' side. This is going to be a fun game. The Baltimore Ravens have been unable to close games, so even if they have a lead, I don't know if I can trust them to go up against a really talented Bills offense and Josh Allen and slow them down, especially in the fourth quarter. I need to see their ability to do that before I believe in them. Therefore, I'm picking Buffalo to win this game. My fourth upset of the week, fourth and final upset of the week. The Bills win 30-21 on Sunday Night Football. There are 2 Monday night games. We're going to go over them on Monday, though. So for now, 4 upset picks. I've got 3 that I think teams that it won't cover the spread. So that's 7 underdogs on the spread, 4 on the money line. If you're looking at that kind of thing, in my opinion, at least. But let me know what you think. Love to hear your thoughts. I'll go through it real quick. Jets win, Vikings win, Saints win, Eagles win, Bengals win, Texans win, Colts win, Bears win, Cardinals win, Niners win, Raiders, Chiefs, and Bills all win. Like I said, let me know what you think. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we will take a look at the college football slate, the deepest one of these first 5 weeks. I've got 13 games picked out for you. That's right, lucky number 13, 2 of them tonight. We're going to break down all of those games and much more coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube. Absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube, absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the Sunday slate for the NFL. In this segment, we're taking a look at the 13 biggest college games, in my opinion, for this weekend, picking a couple upsets, picking some of the best games I think we've had all season long on the slate, in the deepest college slate of them all so far. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with the message in it. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use the super chat feature to do the exact same thing. If you do either of those, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Friday, September 27th. But like I was saying, in this segment, we are taking a look at the 13 biggest college football Week 5 games. One of them taking place tonight between the Washington Huskies taking their team across the country, their first Big Ten game, taking on the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Couldn't get that one out there. Rutgers coming off of a huge win at Virginia Tech last week, winning 26-23. Washington off of a loss to Washington State and a bye week. This is going to be a big game for both of these teams. Both of these teams need a win opening up Big Ten play. Both of these teams need a big win to say, hey, we are here. Rutgers still undefeated right now, favored by 1.5 at home. Biggest game tonight. Both of these teams feature very good defenses. Kyle Monangai, I talked about him before the Virginia Tech game. He is going to be a problem if Rutgers wants to win this game. He's getting about 25 carries a game every time they win, which is a recipe for success. This is a good Washington defense, though. I think when you take a look at these two defenses together, they stack up pretty closely. They're both very good against the pass, although that's neither of these teams' specialty right now. Washington likes to push it downfield just a little bit. Washington's offense is a little bit better. Their defense also is just a little bit better. Because of that, even though it is on the road, I do think this is going to be a very good matchup. I'm leaning towards Washington in this one. I'm leaning Washington. They win 26-23, although I would not be shocked if Rutgers, who is a good team this year, takes them out in a welcome to the Big Ten moment. Up next, Arizona traveling to number 10 Utah, who's favored by 9.5 points. The big question with this game is Cam Rising going to play? That's going to be the big question with any of the Utah games going forward. He's going to be a game time decision. At least that's what it seems like right now. Last week, it seemed like he was going to play. He didn't. This week, I'm not sure. I'm just going to assume he's not. And, just roll with the punches if he is. Arizona coming off of a tough loss against Kansas State recently. They were ranked in the top 25, no longer up there. That offense is prone to break out against just about anyone, but that defense is not good enough. Their offense was shut down pretty solidly by Kansas State's defense, and I think Utah has a much better D than Kansas State. Kansas State, not really built on its defense. Utah very much is. Because of that, despite T-Mac, despite Noah Fafita, I'm leaning towards Utah, though I do think Arizona's offense can keep this close, especially without Cam Rising playing. Without Cam Rising playing, I think Utah wins but doesn't cover. If he does play, I think they cover. I'm going off the option that he does not play, and Utah wins 17-23. Then we get an SEC battle. Ole Miss playing their first real opponent of the year, taking on Kentucky, welcoming them to their home turf. favored by 6 points. Like I said, Ole Miss has yet to play a real opponent. They're ranked number 6 in the country, pretty comfortably in that top 7. Like I said when I was doing my rankings, there's a top 7 in the nation, and Ole Miss is absolutely a part of it. Ole Miss's offense and defense seem to be clicking on all cylinders. Kentucky loses to Georgia by just 1 point in a game that I think if they were a little more aggressive, they maybe even could have won. That Kentucky defense can cause problems. This is a very good Ole Miss team. It's going to come down to the trenches. I think Ole Miss is going to have enough. Favored by 6 points in this one. It's going to be, favored by 16 points in this one. It's going to be a tight game. I think that spread is way too big. I think Ole Miss is able to pull it out, but I don't think 16 points is enough against a good Kentucky team. They're going to take some of these teams to the brink here. Ole Miss wins 33-21. Up next, the Oklahoma State Cowboys take on the Kansas State Wildcats in one of the biggest matchups of the year for the Big 12 so far. Kansas State coming off of a upset loss against BYU, a team we'll talk about in a little bit, favored by 5.5 points at home. Oklahoma State, a team that was supposed to be really good offensively, powered by that ground game, and Ollie Gordon, one of the best running back in the nation last season. He's back. He has struggled a lot against heavy boxes. Less than 50 yards in each of his last 3 games. Under 3 yards a carry. That's not what you expect out of one of the best backs in the country. Alan Bowman has been able to step up in his absence, or I guess lack of production. He has these games where he throws for 400 yards, but both of these teams, Oklahoma State and Kansas State, are wildly inconsistent. I don't know if I'm going to get the Oklahoma State team that, almost loses to Arkansas. I don't know if I'm going to get the Oklahoma State team that dominates its next couple opponents. I don't know if I'm going to get the Kansas State team that dominates against Arizona. I don't know if I'm going to get the Kansas State team that should have lost to Tulane. These are two teams, or I don't know if I'm going to get the Kansas State team that lost to BYU. Right? These are two teams that are wildly inconsistent, and it's really tough to predict them. I like Kansas State just a little bit more. Their versatility offensively, I think Avery Johnson with his legs and his arm will be a little bit better than the Cowboys can handle. I think the Kansas State defense is slightly better. 5.5 points is too much, though, in this one. I think Kansas State wins in a slight upset, 31-28. Then we get to the team that beat Kansas State last week. Number 22, BYU, ranked, taking on Baylor. And Baylor, at home, is favored by 3 points. Baylor took Colorado to overtime, or I should say Colorado took Baylor to overtime in this one on a Hail Mary last week. A crazy way to end the game. Baylor, I don't think, is nearly as good of a team as BYU is. BYU is a very tough opponent. They're very good on the road as well. That's something you don't see a lot in college football, a team that's just as good on the road as it is, at home. BYU's defense, turnovers. That's what it feasts on. That's how they were able to beat Kansas State. Baylor is a team starting a backup quarterback, I believe, and because of that, I don't think they're going to have the juice to beat a good BYU team. BYU wins 31-20 in yet another upset. Then we get a fun one. I'm very high on Indiana. They host Maryland, their first real team. Again, we talk about how Ole Miss has yet to play a real team. Indiana has yet to play a real team as well, unless you count UCLA, although UCLA not very good either. Indiana has won by a lot of points in all of their matchups, as they should have. This is their toughest matchup of the year yet. Favored by 7 points at home. I love Kurt Cignetti's squad. Take a lot of JMU Dukes with them. They dominate. Of course they do. Kurt Cignetti finds a way to win wherever he goes. I think they win this game. 7 points is a lot, though. Maryland's a solid team. I think Indiana wins 27-21. Puts them on the roadmap. Gets them ranked in the top 25 at the end of this week. Then we get our first, or you know what, we're going to save that one. We're going to save that one for a little later. Arkansas travels down to number 24 Texas A&M. Texas A&M, a team whose offense I'm a little concerned with. They haven't been able to put up those big numbers against good schools yet. Their defense is definitely for real. No doubt about it. But Arkansas is a team that whoever they play seems to just end in chaos. Whether they win or lose, they just seem to cause chaos around them on the football field. And chaos and this Texas A&M team don't really seem to mix. I don't know if Arkansas is going to win this game or not. In fact, I don't think they will. But a 6-point spread, I think, is too much for the chaos that is Arkansas. Arkansas loses 20-23 in a tight game that, doesn't look good for either team. Then we get Fresno State taking on UNLV. UNLV, biggest story of the week, loses their quarterback Matthew Sluka, who starts redshirting after not getting the NIL money he thought he was going to get. It was just a miscommunication between his agent and the coach. The agent, not very good. Didn't really work out. It's a shame. But they've got a solid backup. Haj Malik Williams completed 70% of his passes at FCS Campbell, the all-time leading passer over there. Sluka, while he was leading their team to 2 solid victories over 2 Big 12 schools, he couldn't really sling the ball. He couldn't really throw the ball. He was a lot more of a rushing quarterback. Having a guy that can throw the ball through the air is going to be a game changer for UNLV. I'm not counting them out of the playoff race yet. I need to see what happens. They're favored by 2.5 points against a good Fresno State team, a Fresno State team that kind of went toe-to-toe with Michigan in week 1. I'm taking UNLV in a close one, 28-27. Then we get outside of Oklahoma State and Kansas State, we've hit our my top 4 favorite games of the week. Starting at number 4. Number 19 Illinois travels to Penn State, ranked number 9 in the country. Penn State favored by 19.5 points. First of all, before I get into the breakdown of it, that's way too many points. This is a good Illinois squad. Illinois squad that is up there in offense in the rest of the Big Ten. A Penn State squad that struggled against lesser opponents so far, just a little bit, although they've been able to survive it. Illinois' defense, arguably just as good as that Penn State defense. Their offense, while it probably hasn't been as good, hasn't struggled against a team like Bowling Green, hasn't fallen behind a lot of their opponents like Penn State did. I think 19.5 points is way too much, and in fact, I think Illinois pulls this upset off. I think Illinois wins this game 27-20 in Penn State. It's going to be chaos if that happens. This should be a fun game. My number 3 favorite game of the week. Washington State travels to number 25 Boise State. Boise State favored by 6.5 on that blue field. This should be a lot of fun. The 2 best group of 5 schools, in my opinion, duking it out. If Washington State wins, Boise State is out of it for good. If Boise State wins, Washington State isn't out of it for good, but it makes it a hell of a lot harder to make it into the college football playoff. This is going to be one of the biggest games for college football playoff implications of the entire season. Boise State and Ashton Genty going up against a not-so-good Washington State defense. They should tear it up. Washington State, that defense at Boise State is scoreable. It's a team that you can score on, definitely. I think Boise State has the upper hand here because they're at home, because their offense and defense are just slightly better than Washington State. I think Boise State takes this one 31-24. My second favorite game of the week. Number 15, Louisville, traveling to South Bend, Indiana, taking on number 16, Notre Dame. A Notre Dame team who's favored by 7 points in this one. Louisville, whose offense is one of the best in the country. Their biggest issue on defense is going against a running quarterback, of which Riley Leonard is, but they shut a lot of that down when they went up against Georgia Tech last week, winning 31-19. The Notre Dame defense always is good. The offense, on the other hand, has struggled a little bit. Aside from putting up 66 points just a couple of weeks ago, they lose to Northern Illinois, only put up 14 points. If you find a way to slow down that run game, of which Louisville has a very good run defense, there's a difference between run defense and stopping a rushing quarterback, but a good Louisville run defense is kind of an Achilles heel for Notre Dame. Notre Dame is favored by 7 points, and I take Louisville +7 any day. I think Louisville wins this game 34-28. A massive upset, really rocketing up Louisville in the playoff percentage, almost eliminating Notre Dame. And of course, that leaves the game of the week. Number 2, Georgia, traveling to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, to take on the number 4 Alabama Crimson Tide. This is no longer Kirby Smart versus Nick Saban. Now we get a brand new era of Alabama football against the new powerhouse, which is Georgia. Alabama won last year in the SEC championship game, eliminating Georgia from the playoffs, basically. That is a stain on Kirby Smart's record. He doesn't like that. This Georgia team has a lot to play for. This is the biggest game of the year. Number 2 at number 4. This should be a lot of fun. Georgia favored by 1 point, and that defense with the Bulldogs is going to be a problem. They struggled a little bit offensively this year, though. There were a couple of halves this season where they just haven't been able to get it going. Against Kentucky a little bit. Against Clemson in that first half, they weren't able to get it going. Alabama has been clicking on all cylinders on most of their games, outside of the USF game where they struggled until the very end, but they figured out a way around it. This is going to be a good game. I think Georgia pulls this out, though. I would not be shocked if Alabama takes it, but I'm taking Georgia in a revenge game here on the road to win 30-28 in the biggest game of the year. These two teams may meet again. It's not guaranteed with how good Texas is playing, but this is the deepest week of college football so far, and I cannot wait to watch all of it. Let me know what your thoughts are on any of these games. There are a lot of really good ones. 3 ranked on ranked matchups, a couple of huge group of 5 matchups as well. This should be a lot of fun. I can't wait to break all of it down over the weekend on Monday. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we are turning our attention to baseball. The final of the MLB Power Rankings, or I say the final of the in-season MLB Power Rankings, are up next. So stick around for that here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Friday, September 27th. If you are just tuning in, we've just gone over 13 of the biggest college football games of the weekend in the biggest slate thus far, as well as the NFL games earlier on in the show. In this segment, we are going to go with our famous Friday MLB Power Rankings, the official Sports by GSMC podcast, MLB Power Rankings, the final ones of the regular season, or in seasons ones. We will have an end of season Power Rankings as there's just 3 games left for many teams to play. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use the super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Friday, September 27th. We're going to finish off our show here strong. The MLB Power Rankings, hot off the press from September 29th. Starting off at number 30, we have the White Sox. We talked about it yesterday. They're on watch for 121. They kick off a 3-game series against the Detroit Tigers tonight. A huge, huge matchup for both of these teams. The Tigers looking to clinch. We've got Garrett Crochet going tonight for the White Sox. Their starter, they waited for him so that they pushed him back so that they could have him go up against the Tigers, keep their streak alive if they needed to. It's a massive game for both teams. The White Sox, they don't want to go down in infamy. The Tigers, they want to clinch a playoff spot for the first time in 10 years. White Sox, still down there at 30. At 29, the Miami Marlins, the second team to hit 100 losses on the season. Congratulations to the Miami Marlins for hitting that beautiful round number. They had a season worth forgetting, I will say. Congratulations on your 100 loss season. They made the playoffs last year. In 28th place, the Colorado Rockies at 98 wins. They're also almost at that 100 loss record. We'll see if they can get there. See if we can get 3 teams there without getting a single team to 100 wins. This is the first time since 2013 that no team is going to get to 100 wins. Lots of parity here this year. At 27, the Angels. They get swept by the White Sox. Probably should have moved them down for that, but they're still slightly better than the Rockies. The White Sox get their second sweep of the year ever. Angels, not very good. Also, just going to miss out on that 100 losses, but they're right around there. At 26, the Washington Nationals. The Nationals are in disrepair. CJ Abrams, their first player to go 2020 since Ian Desmond did it back in the early 2010s. He gets sent down to the minors because he spent all night in a Chicago casino. Not a good look for them. They've got a lot of young talent. They'll be back next year with pitching, with hitting. I believe in this Washington Nationals team to be good next season. The Athletics at 25, we talked about them yesterday. They just finished up their final game in the Oakland Coliseum last night. They get a win. A great way to send out in a historic stadium, the last of the formerly combined football-baseball stadiums in use. It's a shame. No positive emotions out of there other than a win. It sucks for the A's. It sucks for their fans. And not a big fan of John Fisher here at the Sports by GSMC Podcast Network headquarters. But at 24, we have the Pirates. The Pirates and Paul Skeens. Paul Skeens is probably going to win Rookie of the Year. Maybe even going to be up there in NL Cy Young. I don't think he'll win it, but I think he'll be up there. He had an awesome season. The Pirates should be back next year. They don't move at all. The Reds, up there at number 23. The Reds get a loss today. They lose to the Cubs 1-0. They fire their manager. David Bell is no more after giving him an extension. Just shows the state of the team a little bit. They had some improvement. They dealt with injuries, but I think a new face in that clubhouse is very important, and I think they have the talent to turn it around next year. At 22, the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays, Vladdy looks like he's back. Not all the way back, but he looks like he's back. And if they can build on the momentum, maybe, just maybe, they can find a way to not waste this core. I still think they should have traded this core away, though, gotten a haul for Vladdy at the deadline. Maybe they'll do that next year. At 21, the San Francisco Giants. Matt Chapman gets his massive extension. The Giants are going to be kind of mediocre for a long time. They're kind of in that weird range where they're not good, but they're not bad, and they're going to spend money to try and get out of it. They have money to spend. Rumors are they're going to chase Juan Soto pretty heavily. I don't think they're going to go out and get him, but there is a shot. We'll see. At 20, the Rays. The Rays had a uncharacteristically down year. Injuries hit them hard as they usually do, but they were unable to come back from it. Next year they should be able to bounce back. It's the Rays. I'm not too worried about them. The defending champion, Texas Rangers. Number 19. They've just had an awful year all season long. We kind of knew they weren't gonna be back. I had them missing the playoffs at the beginning of the season, but I did think they were still gonna be slightly better than this. Injuries hit them hard. You had a nice rookie year from Wyatt Langford, stuff to build on. They'll be back next year as well. The Cardinals at 18. They looked like they were gonna go on a run there in the middle of the year, get that wild card spot. Unfortunately, injuries caught up to them. They sputtered out at the end. I'm not a huge believer in the Cardinals for the future. Their team is built around a very, very old core. It's a little concerning if you're a Cardinals fan. At 17, the Boston Red Sox. Picture of mediocrity, right? The Boston Red Sox continue to find ways to be right around 500. The Boston Red Sox, 80-79. Wouldn't it be fun if they just finished the year over there at 81-81? Something they could very easily do in this series against the Rays. Mariners at 16, the most recent team to get eliminated from the playoffs. They were almost there. They were so close after choking away a very large lead to the Houston Astros in their division. The Mariners just unable to claim that final wild card spot, fall just short. Their offense figured it out at the end. It was just too little too late for them, unfortunately. The Cubs, with the only win today so far, winning 1-0 over the Reds. They stay there at number 15. They're another team kind of like the Giants. They're a little younger, so they've got a little more hope, but they're just kind of sitting there. At 14, the Twins. Fall from grace for the Twins. 3-7 over their last 10. Losses to the Marlins a whole bunch. Falling all but out of the wild card race. Now, they still do have a chance. They haven't been eliminated yet. They are the last team in the AL to not be eliminated, but they need help. They either need the Tigers to get swept by the White Sox. Probably not going to happen. The Royals to get swept by the Braves. Better chance, but I'd reckon that it's not going to happen. And on top of that, they need to sweep the Orioles. That is a lot of stuff that needs to happen. They're 3 games out. There's only one way in. They need to win out, and one of those 2 teams ahead of them needs to lose out. They're just about out of this game. They're just about out of the playoffs, though. Although the team right ahead of them, the Royals, are struggling nearly just as much as they are. Both of those teams, 3-7 in their last 10. So if there's any team that might be able to swap with them, it is that division rival, the Kansas City Royals. Both teams have kind of tough opponents. They both have playoff opponents, although the Braves are definitely fighting for their lives more than the O's are. So maybe there's a little bit of life there. I doubt it, though. The Royals are at 13. At 12, the Houston Astros. The Astros have just been playing solid baseball ever since they took the lead. 5-5 over their last 10. They claimed the division. It feels like this is what they were meant to do all season long, right? The Astros just keep on winning ball games, right? That's all they got to do. Climb all the way back. This is a good Astros team, and they're trying to make the ALCS for the 8th time in a row. The Braves at number 11 are holding on to dear life to a playoff spot. They're not as far out as the Twins are, just 1 game back of the Diamondbacks and the Mets right now. They have a doubleheader against the Mets coming up soon. That is going to be a massive, massive set. Whoever wins that, if they split it, if the Braves are able to sweep, this is going to change everything. These next two games for the Braves and the Mets. I'm excited to see what happens, though. At 10, it's the Orioles. They've been sliding a little bit. They went on a little bit of a hot streak there. They end up losing the division, but they did claim a playoff spot earlier this week against the Yankees. They made it in, not where they want to be, but they're one of the best teams in the league, hovering around 90 wins, which is close enough to the top. They're by far the best wild card, I think, although they're coming in not really too hot. They've got one series to turn it around. They can eliminate the Twins, or they could let the Twins in. We'll see. Obviously, they're not going to let them in, but they could find a way for the Twins to slip in by playing them. At number 9, the Arizona Diamondbacks have not clinched a playoff spot yet, and they are the team in the NL that's the closest to free falling. None of those three teams that are fighting for the last two spots in the NL are really free falling. They're all playing pretty good baseball right now. The Arizona Diamondbacks, I think, are playing the worst baseball out of all of them, and it's not by much. They're still ahead of the Braves. It's going to be a tight matchup for who gets in. I'm excited to see these last series of the year, though. Continuing in our top 10, the New York Mets sit at 8. They just continue to win ball games, and they're very, very close to clinching. They get a huge matchup with the Braves. If they're able to sweep that, they're in. Plain and simple. That's all they need to do. They need to win 2 games against the Braves, and they are in. That's all it takes. It's in their hands. They control their fate. The Tigers up to number 7. They have been hot. 9-1 over their last 10. The Detroit Tigers, all but guaranteed a playoff spot. I talked about that scenario. As long as they don't lose out, they're in. They win 1 game. Their magic number is 1, and they are in. And lucky them. Guess who they face? The Chicago White Sox. The red-hot Chicago White Sox, I should say. Still the Chicago White Sox, doing everything they can to not hand the Tigers their first playoff berth in 10 years. Padres clinched a playoff spot. They're the number 1 wild card seed in the NL. They're at number 6 here. They've been very hot. They're going to be a dangerous team in the playoffs. They got healthy for the playoffs. That's not something a lot of teams do. The Brewers at 5 clinched their division. They're just continuing to win ball games. It's a stacked NL. They don't get a bye, but it's a stacked NL. So we'll see. Guardians at 4. They, I believe, have clinched a bye for the first round of the playoffs. Them and the Yankees. They get a first round bye. That's huge for them. I don't remember the last time they did that. Must have been when they made the World Series about 10 years ago. The Yankees at number 3 clinched their division. Aaron Judge found a power surge near the end, almost up to 60 home runs. Shohei Ohtani started chasing him for that overall home run lead, so kind of had to find it again. Homered in a couple straight games, brought the Yankees to the playoffs. Phillies fall 1 spot to number 2, not because of anything they've done, just because the Dodgers at number 1 have Shohei Ohtani, and he's a special guy. That's about it. Best baseball player on the planet. Maybe the best baseball player in the history of baseball. I heard that from a couple of MLB players, so, I don't feel that crazy saying it, but maybe he even pitches in the postseason, which would be awesome. It would be so much fun to see. The Dodgers need some pitching help. They got a little injured on the starting pitching line, but they're a very good ball club. They've got their lineup set. MVPs at the top, great hitters at the bottom. But let me know what you think of my MLB power rankings. I'd love to hear your thoughts on anything. The postseason is right around the corner. After these series this weekend, we're going to do a full breakdown of the MLB playoff bracket. That'll be probably on Wednesday, if I'm going to be honest with you. But MLB postseason is right around the corner. I cannot wait to break it down with all of you guys. But thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Go watch some football. Go watch some college football. Go enjoy some baseball. We'll talk about all of it on Monday. We'll do our power rankings on Tuesday, and we'll talk about the MLB playoffs on Wednesday. Look at it. It's shaping up to be an awesome week next week. So make sure you tune in for all of that and more here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. You'll have a good one. Bye-bye.
like it's gonna be a bad day. I'm tired of